West has been riddled by a lack of service delivery and poor leadership, which has adversely affected residents. Now, the province plans to return 17 billion rand of their over 57 billion total budget to the National Treasury because certain departments have not spent the money. The health department was the only department to reach the 76% spending threshold. According to a report seen by City Press newspaper, the province only spent about 34 billion rand. To unpack this, we're joined by political analyst Professor Andre Duvenhage. Professor Duvenhage, good morning. Good to speak to you. How do we arrive at a situation where a municipality sends back such a huge amount of money?
Well, to start with, and we are currently using on a constant basis the concept of a weak and even a failed state. When we look at the Northwest province, it is a typical example of a classic case of a failing state environment with mismanagement, with corruption, with basically dysfunctionality on all levels of government. If you just look at the number of Article 139 interventions, that is where the province intervened and where a local structure becoming dysfunctional. We had the most interventions from all 9 provinces in South Africa, something like 46 since 1998. So basically, structures are dysfunctional. We have a scenario where premiers are not completing their terms, where we have faction fights, conflict. We are in a province that is under administration partly, and we have the scenario where we cannot elect a provincial executive committee for the leading party because we have an interim provincial committee and they can't elect as a result of instability and conflict. And here we have the Supramawamupelus and the other people fighting itself out. In that environment, proper and functional administration, government and management is not possible.
Now, Professor, these individuals that run municipalities and councils are elected. So not necessarily individuals that might be qualified to run municipalities. Do you think that's an issue?
We have done a study, it's a PhD study, on the situation in the province. And it's quite clear that we have to do with a cadre deployment strategy. And when you have a crisis on one level, you are replacing one incompetent cadre with another one. And sometimes the problem is even worsening. Our studies have shown that Article 139 interventions end up even worse than it started. And currently, there's a strong drive for bringing back capacity into the structures. But as you know, this is sometimes in direct conflict with the application of the and other forms of policies. And that's not only applicable on white people, that's also applicable on black people with the necessary qualifications but not belonging to the right political faction or grouping within the province. And as a result of that, structures are just falling apart. If you just look at the infrastructure in the majority of municipalities in Northwest, I have seen what happened in a strong municipality like Potchefstroom after the amalgamation with Ventersdorp. Basically, everything is falling apart, but the cadres are deployed and redeployed one after the other. So my take on the situation is that we need a radical turnaround strategy. And hopefully there's some light in the tunnel. And if we can elect a proper leadership in the province, and we can take it forward from there, and that should start from within the ANC, then there is some hope for the province. But as long as we continue with the internal conflict and strife, I am afraid we are not going to get to solutions.
Professor Duvenhage, you talk about sorry, can you hear me, Professor?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You talk about a radical change. What does that radical change look like practically?
Well, to me, it starts all with doing the basics right. getting the right people in
Did he
strategic positions. That is absolutely critical. Appointing people with the necessary skills, with the strong value systems. Getting stability within the party framework and stability within the structures of the province. Create capacity at a local government level, involving all parties and structures, and here I'm including opposition parties like the DA, the Freedom Front Plus, even the EFF where necessary, AfriForum, in order to consolidate the position, to create capacity and to get a functional infrastructure going. That should be a starting point, but it needs a completely newly defined paradigm, and I'm afraid that paradigm differs fundamentally from some of the policy statements that is currently dominant within the structures of the ANC.
Now, only a very small number of municipalities operate to optimum or ideally. In your view, which municipalities can be used as an example of a municipality that is working the way it should be?
Well, at the moment, I'm afraid I cannot mention one. I have seen the figures and statistics of all the municipalities in the Northwest, and there is not one that is performing among the top 10% within South Africa. You can in no way, and I just came from the Western Cape, compare the municipalities in the Western Cape. I was at Mossel Bay, their functionality, their infrastructure, their capacity with anything in Northwest. If you want to select the best one, it is probably going to be the J.B. Marks Potchefstroom one. But I must tell you, and I am a Potchefstromer, or involved in Potchefstroom for the last 3 to 4 decades, and currently Potchefstroom is in its worst case in terms of infrastructure, in terms of capacity, in terms of sustainability. So there are serious problems and challenges in this regard, even in that one. If we look at other municipalities, and I think the best one is probably Mafeking and the Roof Modiri municipality. I think if you look at them, then really we are in an environment of institutional and political decay.
Political analyst, Professor Andre Duvenhage, thank you for your time this morning.